Hi, this is David Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you're watching with our friends over at Torah Anytime or wherever you listen or watch your podcasts, we're always happy to have you along. And remember to subscribe, like, and share, I think. I'm not that savvy, but someone told me, I mentioned this last time. We don't have a sponsor this episode. We're out of sponsorships. We had a slew of them when we first told you that we're running out of funds. So I hope that we get to continue after Pesach. But we're going to need people to help us out here and sponsor some episodes. So, we're looking for you. Uncle Dave's looking for you. All right. I started a little series based on the Atbash of the tour. And I thought that, the way I was counting the weeks, we would have enough time to finish this going into Pesach. And now I realize we don't. So I'm going to abridge it. We did Aleph, Beis, Gimel. I'm going to skip Dalet and Hey and go straight to Vav. Yeah. Vav is, of course, Erev Yontif of Yontif Sheni. Yeah. Whatever day that comes out. And obviously, if first day Yontif is Tuesday, that means Shvi is going to be Monday, which means it's going to start Sunday night, which means Erev Yontif is Saturday night. For those of you in Chutz La'aretz, you basically have no Chol Hamoed this year. Yeah? Because you have Monday night, Tuesday, Tuesday night, Wednesday, you have Thursday, you have Erev Shabbos, you have Erev Pesach. Yeah? So there's Thursday, live it up. Those of you who would like to go to Great Adventure in the freezing cold and rain, this is your opportunity, to have that joy of spending $40 for a Frankfurter, $25 for a Coke, $18 for a bag of potato chips. It's really a lot of fun. Let me tell you, to be able to have that opportunity to be strapped into a machine that's going to hurl you backwards, upside down, 100 miles an hour. Some people find that fun. If I want that experience, I can just take a taxi here in Yerushalayim and have the same thing. I don't need to pay that much money for it. But anyway, I don't know that your odds of survival on either one are any better. But in any event, so I'm going to skip to the end. And that is obviously if the date of Vav Pesach, which is Erev Yontif, is Saturday night, that means Purim is Saturday night. But it's not. It's a kasha. Nunu. Gematrias can be off. No. The answer is that although Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, Hey all work normally, it tells you the date of the upcoming Yontif, Purim, with Vav is Pei, which is Purim, is backwards. Get it? It goes backwards. And it tells you it's the same day as Purim of the year before. So therefore, if Purim this year was Saturday night, that means that Vav Pesach, the Vav corresponds to the Pei, tells us that Purim will be the way before it. Okay, but what is the connection between Shishi Shel Pesach and Purim? Where is there any kind of a conceptual connection? Now, I said this in all the other podcasts, but in case you just happen to be watching this one, I have no source for this. It's presented merely as a mnemonic device that the Atbash of Pesach tells you when the other Yom Tovim are going to come out. I heard someone explain once because Pesach is Rosh Kol Hamoedim. It's the mother of all holidays, and therefore it sets the tone for all the other Yom Tovim. But I'm saying that conceptually, each day of Pesach should have something to do with those aspects to it. So let's dive in. Like I say, I thought that I would get through everything, but okay, I'll have something to do for next year if I want to fill in Hay and Vav. Dal and Hay. So what happened on the 6th day of Pesach? Yeah. As you remember, we came out of Mitzrayim, and we went 3 days. At the end of 3 days, the Shomrim who accompanied us said, okay, now it's time to go back to Egypt, and we beat them up and sent them on their way. It took them 3 days to get back to Paro, and when Paro heard, he gathered together his remaining troops and came crashing towards the Jewish people. Now, just before this, Moshe Rabbeinu came up with a great plan. He says, look, we could keep running out into the desert, but I got a better idea. Let's backtrack and put our back to the Yam Suf, so we have no place to escape to. And let's wait there for Paro to come and chase us and destroy us. And the Jewish people were, come again? Yeah, that's the plan. Don't worry, Hashem will save you. Like he does. That's what he does. Yeah. And don't worry about it. So they said, Ein lanu divrei ben Amram. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Personally, I would say keep running away from Egypt as fast as you can, but we'll end up with anarchy. We follow Moshe Rabbeinu, he's the man with the stick. And so they backtrack, and they set themselves up by the Yam Suf, and they wait. And sure enough, on Shishi, as they're encamped at the Yam Suf, they hear the thundering hoofbeats of the remaining horses of Mitzrayim and the chariots and the army. This is one of the world's powers at that time. You remember under Yosef, they got all the money of the world under their control, and they were in a position to be unbelievably powerful. And they have a tremendous army. They come rushing towards the Jewish people. It had to be a terrifying sight. If you ever read about the Battle of Bunker Hill, you have these Americans, colonials with muskets, and they're watching the redcoats marching up at them. Yeah. And their order is, we don't have enough gunpowder. Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes. And they come closer and closer and closer, and you can't do anything. You're just waiting until they come close enough, and you say, fire. I've mentioned this in the past. When I was growing up, we had a TV in my house, and Channel 7, ABC in New York, they had something called the 4:30 movie, which, surprise, surprise, came on at 4:30 in the afternoon. And it went till 6. And that's ostensibly an hour and a half, but of course you have to remove time for commercials. So whatever movie they showed, if it was an hour and a half, a 2-hour movie, they had to edit it so it fit into the, 75 minutes that they had in order to make 90 minutes with 15 minutes of commercials or whatever exactly the cheshbon was. And so, so they had some fun movies, and I used to watch it when I came home from school. And there was one movie that was a long movie, so they had to break it into 2 nights. I mentioned this, I think, in another podcast. It was called Zulu. And it's about this British little settlement in Africa, and the Zulus are coming to attack, and they're terribly outmanned, like ridiculous. And the end of the first half was just before the attack. And you see everybody holding their guns in their places. And you just in the distance hear rustling in the grass. And then suddenly a gazillion Zulus stand up with their spears and shields and go, Zulu, Zulu. And they go back down. And they cut to the faces of the people. And you see them sweating. And, and they creep a little closer. And they jump up again and smash their spears and their shields. Zulu, Zulu. They go back down. And that was it. That's where it ended. And the second part would always come out on Friday. And they always did it in November when lichbenching was at 4:12. So I never saw the end of Zulu. I don't know what happens. I don't know if they all get wiped out or if they survive. I don't know. I never saw the second half. But that ending was just, wow. So here you are at the Yam Suf. You're only free from Egypt for a week. And here comes the king and his troops, his officers, their chariots, all their splendors, and you've got nothing. Nothing. How do you expect to defend yourself against this? And as it comes closer and closer, they're not up to the whites of their eyes yet, but they're coming closer. The people turn to Moshe and say, Hambali ein kvarim b'Mitzrayim. What's the matter? There weren't enough graves in Egypt. You brought us out here to get killed in the desert? They lost faith. They saw themselves in a hopeless situation, and they could not imagine any way to turn the situation around. And Moshe says to them, yeah, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Be quiet and let Hashem save the day. Your avoda now is to keep your mouth shut. Yeah, don't worry about it. Hashem knows what he's doing. I'm not doing this on my own. They thought maybe this was Moshe's plan. He was figuring a Kadosh Baruch Hu was going to fly in and save them, and obviously it didn't work. And Moshe says, no, I'm not doing this on my own. And that's why afterwards, when they see the Egyptians destroyed, it says, V'yaminu b'Hashem u'b'Moshe avdoi. At that point, they understood that Moshe is just an Eved Hashem, and whatever he says he's saying on behalf of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why the Korach rebellion was so destructive, because it undermined the authority of Moshe Rabbeinu and his honesty and integrity. And that's why that was such a terrible thing. But now they don't know. And they see they're going to get killed. Those who survived dragged back into slavery. Only now the Egyptians are going to have even less of a sense of humor than they did the first time. Yeah, it's going to be an absolute Gehenna of an existence. And they can't see any solution. There's no way out of this. Yeah. So, of course, there was no way they could anticipate what was going to come next. So the Egyptians move into position and they start shooting their slings and arrows and their catapults to fall among the Jews and kill them. And suddenly the little cloud of glory that leads them moved to the back of the camp and absorbed all the rockets and all the missiles and all the arrows. Boom, 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 boom. And they all got stuck in the cloud. Yeah. Today, when it gets stuck in the cloud, you just have to pay a little bit of money. You can take it down. But back then, it got stuck in the cloud. It wasn't coming back, And then the pillar of fire comes, to get the Egyptians. And now the Egyptians are like, they're the ones who are confused. And in a moment, the whole situation changed. And then Moshe Rabbeinu says, okay, let's get out of here. He says, where do you want us to go? That way. That's an ocean. We will drown. I might not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, and I have been a slave my whole life, but I'm pretty sure that if I walk into the sea, I'm going to die. He says, there's no sea there. It's just an illusion. Just go. And the people are like, I don't know. And Nachshon says, I'll go. And he starts walking into the sea, and they say, go ahead, Nachshon. And it's up to his waist, and he says, I believe in Moshe, I believe in Hashem. And they say, keep going. And it's up to his neck, and it's up to his nose. And they say, he's dead. And suddenly the whole sea parts. This is such an unbelievable thing that we can't even imagine. You know, I remember when you take the Universal tours, so they have a part where they split the Red Sea, but of course it's just a cute little thing that they do. It's not real, but I mean obviously it's not real, but I mean it's just a small little thing. It's not a gigantic thing. I mean the sea is enormous, and the whole thing splits in half. Okay, now generally, assuming that you could split the sea in half, it's going to be pretty muddy down there. Dry land. And they start walking. There's a stream coming along. There's fruit growing. Who, in their wildest imagination, could have anticipated this? Meanwhile, the Egyptians are busy fighting a pillar of fire. And finally, once we all get in, everybody's there, the pillar of fire moves away, the cloud moves away, and they chase after us. Chase after us. You got to be pretty seriously determined when you see that whoever these people are have the power to take a sea and split it in half, and you're still chasing them? Chasing after them. We're going to get them. We're going to bring them back. And when enough of them are in and the Jewish people get out on the other side, it closes. And it starts churning them, spinning it around like a dryer, bringing them up and bringing them down. And as the sea turns back into a sea, the people behind keep marching in. Because people who are determined will just keep going regardless of what the facts are. And they just keep following them into the sea, and they get destroyed and they get drowned. And the Jewish people turn around and they see the Egyptians dead on the shore, and they know it's over. That crisis of faith, where you look at a situation and you say, I see no way out. I don't understand how we're going to survive this. This is more than I can handle. That crisis, that's Purim. That's exactly Purim. Every Jew in the world was under the control of Achashverosh. There was no one to help us. Mordechai, who presumably had the ear of the king, they see Haman building these tremendous gallows to hang him publicly, to show Mordechai has no power left in this government. That's why when we say Shoshanas Yaakov, we refer to Zeresh as Eshes Mafchidi. Moshe Shapiro said once, because she's the one who gave the advice to build the gallows to terrify the Jewish people. That's it. Mordechai, he's done. You're all the walking dead. They turn to their neighbors, and the neighbors are already, checking out their house and what they're going to take and what they're going to do after they kill every Jew. Nobody was offering to try to hide them. There was no garden for the righteous among the nations. Everybody was going to wipe out the Jews and take whatever they had. There was nobody, no voice. And they knew, some people knew, that at least we have Esther in the palace. And suddenly Esther says, Haman, come to my special party with the king. And they say, oh my gosh, Esther sold us out. I cannot see any way to reverse this, because everyone knows that if a decree is signed with the ring of the king, it cannot be undone. You can't cancel it out. It's not an executive order that the next president can just cancel. We're stuck here. We're stuck. I don't see any solution. And so, just like the Jews who are stuck against the sea and see Paro and his army coming to them, the Jews, during the time of the Purim story, knew they were all going to be wiped out. There is no way out. There's no way for us to save ourselves. We can't get arms. We can't get defense. No place to run. Not another government. He rules the whole world. It was totally hopeless. Mikimi me'afada me'ashbais yirim evyon. From the garbage heaps, from the lowest levels, Mimamakim kursicha Hashem, we cry out to you from the depth. We're not even on ground level. We're all the way down. We're in a hole. The only place I ever actually saw it, I think, was in the Aguda of Baltimore, where they actually dug out a little hole for the Shliach Tzibur to stand in when he's davening at the Hamoed. Yeah. Mimamakim kursicha Hashem. When Moshe comes, he says, okay, everybody, the Gula is going to come. He says, are you sure? Yeah, watch this. Poof. Yeah, I turn that stick into a snake. I take it back. Wow. Watch my hand over here. See, it turns into saras. No, nothing up my sleeve. See that? It's healthy. See, there's water. Stop. Turns into dam. They believed him. And he goes to Paro. And as he goes to Paro, Paro was only an amatol. He was a short guy, midget. And the doorway was an amatol, so everybody else had to crawl into Paro. The door reaches up for Moshe Rabbeinu. He walks in and he says, let my people go. And all the people are like, okay, this is it, the Geula. And Paro says, I'm thinking as you're talking, how about instead I don't give them any straw? Tell them to make the same amount of bricks and they're not going to get any straw. And if they don't, I'll beat them. One lash for every brick that's not there. Moshe comes out and says to Hashem, that's not how it was supposed to go. I have to tell you, in my head, I saw this completely different. I saw Paro saying, yes, of course, I understand the Gula has arrived, thank the Jewish people for me. And by the way, I have some lovely parting gifts, I didn't expect it to get worse. I came and made the situation worse. And he says to Hashem, what'd you send me for? I just made the situation worse. And Hashem says, gosh, I miss Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. No matter what happened, they never questioned me. Here, the first time things go wrong, complain, complain, complain. Reminds me of a New Yorker cartoon. I had a book of old New Yorker cartoons, and you see in the middle of the ocean, these two guys are clinging to this piece of wood. Their clothes are all ripped, they're obviously there was a shipwreck. They're holding onto this piece of wood. And one guy says to the other, you haven't said a pleasant word in 3 days. So complain, complain, complain. Don't you understand? In order to reach the highest heights, you pull the arrow back, and the further you pull it back, the further it's going to go. So the lower down the situation is, the worse things look, that's how great the miracle is going to be. Eliyahu Navi says to the priest of Baal, okay, we're going to make a contest, see who's right, God or Baal. I'll take an animal, you take an animal. We'll both roll the Mizbeach, we'll both offer up the animal, and let's see who can bring the fire from heaven. So the priests of Baal, they're trying every trick in the book. They're doing this, they're doing that, they're chanting, they're doing everything they can do. Nothing. And Eliyahu gets up there and he says, pour water all over the place. Asked the Gemara how there was a drought. As it came out of Elisha's fingers. Soaked it. Said, do it again. Do it again. I'll show you. Back away, everybody. Here it comes. Whoosh. The fire comes down and burns up everything. Burnt up the water, burnt up the Mizbeach, burnt up everything. Because the worse things look, that's the greater. From the garbage heaps, from the lowest level. if we had anything to rely on in the Purim story, anyone we could turn to, anyone we could speak to, anything we could do, then it wouldn't have been as desperate. The situation wouldn't have been, what do we do? But because things were so terrible and there was no solution, that's when we realized, from the garbage heaps, from the lowest you can go, the Geula is going to come. That was the 6th day of Pesach, before the 7th, before Kriyas Yamsuf, before the salvation, when all hope was lost and there was no more solutions and nothing we could do. That's when the Geula was going to come and the salvation was going to happen. And Mirza Hashem, this year we should be Zoichet to be able to see that Emes Geula. And like I say, I had to abbreviate this particular series, but maybe we'll come back to it in the future. And now, questions and answers. There we have a sponsor for question and answers, sponsored in the schus of my children, Hinda Ayala Bas Miriam, Hadassah Bas Miriam, and Ahuva Bas Miriam, and Eloi Nishmas, my good friend Malka Bas Shalom. Okay. And it should be a schus for the family. And remember, we need sponsors to keep this show going. First question is by Anonymous. Between Shabbos and Yontif, we Jews sure eat a lot. It seems like everyone I know, myself included, is carrying around a lot of extra pounds. Do you have any advice on how to enjoy Shabbos and Yontif without destroying our health? Yes. Pace yourself. Yeah. Especially when you have a 3-day Yontif. You sit down to that first Suda, you're not thinking about 3 days down the line. And there's so much good food. And you take some of this, you take some of that. Yeah. The secret is in limiting amounts. That's all. Now, one helpful technique I can give you is the following. Almost never does all the food come out at the same time. So they bring out the rice and you put the rice on your plate. Or they bring out the potatoes and you put the potatoes on your plate and you eat it right away. And then they bring out the next side dish and you eat that. Then they bring out the next one, you eat that. You know, and then they bring out the main course. And yeah. And now the main course comes. I'm not going to have some rice with it. I'm not going to have some potatoes, you know. You end up taking a separate helping. I have a weak spot. Yeah. We make this chicken and roast potatoes. It's really very easy. Very, very easy. I cut up a bunch of onions and put it on the bottom of the pan. I cut up the potatoes and I put it into a bowl with oil, salt, pepper, garlic, and paprika, and I mix it all together and I lay it on the bottom. And then I do the same thing to the chicken in the same mixture and I put it on top and we cook it for a very long time. The chicken is nothing to talk about. It's kind of overcooked, but the potatoes are out of this world and I could just keep eating them. And I don't. Yeah, I don't. I take a potato and put it on my plate. And I do that with everything. You know, when they bring out all the dips, I take one piece of challah and I put a little bit of dip of all the different kind of dips that I want to try on my plate. That's what I have. If I run out of my challah, then I eat the dips without any bread. My daughter Esther and her husband Avi, they slice up cucumbers and bring it out so they can eat the dips by dipping it into the cucumbers without having to use bread. Okay, that's it. That's all I have. There's a piece of fish. I take a very tiny piece of fish to have fish. Soup is my weak spot. I do have a bowl of soup. Sometimes I'll even have two. I'm a super aficionado. Yeah. When the main course comes out, I may not even eat the chicken or the meat. It's just I'm already full. I'm done. But I'll have a roast potato. Maybe I'll have a little rice. You know, a little sweet potato. You know, something that that I want to have a taste. But I'll have a taste. And if I don't do this, I get so sick that I just can't keep going. So you have to pace yourself. You have to remember there's a bunch more meals coming up. And Mistama, nothing's going to run out. So it'll be in the fridge if you decide that you want to nosh later on, especially on Yom Tov. You can heat it up even, so nobody will be left behind and no one will go hungry. Don't worry. By Anonymous, besides Lowen's cream puffs, do you have a favorite pastry? So first of all, I have spoken a lot about Lowen's cream puffs. And I mentioned when I was at the Project Inspired convention, so my good friend Moshe David bought cream puffs from 4 different bakeries. And so that it shouldn't be like, you eat them all at one time, you numb your palate, Throughout the entire Shabbos, he kept bringing down another cream puff for us to try. One of them was pretty close. I forgot which bakery it is in Brooklyn. One of them was pretty close. But that was... He remembers the original cream puff, so he knows of what I speak, So we both decided that was the closest, yeah. But anyway, he set out on a mission about this to try to see if he can recreate the Lowen cream puffs and where they came from. Zamek's Bakery. Now, it changed hands, so I don't know if this is still true. But when we lived in Far Rockaway in the 80s, the early 80s, we would occasionally make Sheva Brachas. And when we'd make Sheva Brachas, we would go to Zamek's and we would order a cake. It was a chocolate cake with a chocolate fudge filling and chocolate buttercream on the top. And we would decorate it with, different pictures of decorations you could do. We took the Cinderella decoration. They made a little stream with the icing and little birds. And they had a little carriage being pulled by horses and a chas and kala, by the carriage. And it was just absolutely beautiful. I had people who had been on diets for years who broke their diet to eat that cake. So that was pretty good. Yeah. A really good cheese Danish. And I have to tell you, full disclosure, I haven't had a really good cheese Danish in years. But when I was younger, they used to make a cheese Danish and it was filled with cheese. Now it's mostly a sweet challah roll with a little bit of cheese in it. It doesn't do it for me. But those old cheese Danishes, I remember, that were mamish. Those old cheese Danishes that were mamish filled with cheese. Oh, that was exciting. I also have in my head, I don't know who made it when I was a kid. They had these devil food cookies. They were like coming in a devil's food cake, and they were covered in chocolate, and they were just almost as addictive as Lowen's cream puffs. So that's my pastry pointers. By Anonymous, does the Rav wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed? Also, can you please explain the reason for both minhagim? The reason for both minhagim is very easy, because it's Chol Hamoed. If you look at it as Chol, you wear tefillin. If you look at it as Moed, you don't. That's the reason for the two of them. Yeah. In Eretz Yisrael, most people follow the Gura, and they do not wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed. In America, a lot of the people follow the Ramah, and they do wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed. In fact, when Henlech Leibowitz would be here for Chol Hamoed, Rosh Yeshiva Chavetz Chaim, he would daven in a side room because he would daven with his tefillin during Chol Hamoed. That was his minhag, and he felt that was the right way. And he says you can't really ignore the Ramah, and that's how he went. Now, in my case, my grandfather came from Vengrove. He wasn't a learned person, but he remembered what they did where he came from. I found very often when I would find they would have certain minhagim, my father did whatever his father did, and I would go to yeshiva day school, and they would tell me, no, that's not the right way. Yeah. The example I always bring is karpas. My father used onion for karpas. And I remember they told us in day school when I was going, you're supposed to use parsley. So I told my father he's supposed to use parsley. He says, my father used onion, I'm using onion. And so we would put out both onion and parsley. I was doing what they taught me in school, and my father was following his custom. Years later, I found in the Haggadah, Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz, he says, karpas, you're supposed to use onion. There are people who use parsley, but that's ridiculous. Nobody eats parsley. You would make a shahako on it. It's not even a food. It's there for decoration, you know? So my father was clearly vindicated, yeah. So my brother at one point asked my grandfather what he did about tefillin on Chol Hamoed. And he said, if he went to work, if he had to work on Chol Hamoed, he wore his tefillin. If he didn't work, he didn't wear his tefillin. That was what he said his minhag was. I asked my synagogue rabbi at the time. He said, there's no such a minhag. You either wear it or you don't wear it. But it sounds to me like he did not wear it. So don't wear it. So, okay. I wouldn't wear it on Chol Hamoed starting from that point. When I came to Eretz Yisrael, of course, I didn't. And even following my grandfather's minhag, I haven't worked on Chol Hamoed in years and years and years. So I don't see, ever since I left NCSY, I don't have to do the Chol Hamoed trip to Great Adventures. Pay $50 for a hot dog. So, so I don't wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed today, because in Yerushalayim they don't, and like I say, that's how the Rav told me my grandfather's minhag was. Okay, we have some extra time today. By AG, can a person daven that a certain taiyva be taken away from them? If so, why? Sure. Yeah. You daven in the morning, lo ya'idei nisayin v'la yudei bizayin. You say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, don't test me. And we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to help us with our taiyvas, to help us with our things. Tefillah is such an important thing. But I'll give you what I think is an obvious proof. At the end of Bayis Rishon, one of the reasons it was destroyed is because of Avodah Zarah. The Anshe Knesset Gdola got together and davened that Hashem should remove the Taiyva for Avodah Zarah. And they were successful. And then they davened to remove the Taiyva for Gilui Arayos, and then people just stopped getting married altogether. So they had to put it back, at least to a limited extent. But you see, beferish, you can daven to have a Taiyva removed. And you definitely should daven that HaKadosh Baruch Hu help you with your taiyvas and help you remove them and overcome them. 100%. By Anonymous, is it better to focus on learning Be'in or Be'kiyas? Why do yeshivas focus so much on Gemara? The Gemara says you should spend Kedushin, if I'm not mistaken. The Gemara says you should spend a third of your day learning Tanakh, a third of your day learning Mishnah, and a third of your day learning Gemara. And then the Gemara says, and if you learn Gemara, you get all three in. So the Gemara itself says that learning Gemara is the best thing. The Gemara in Bava Metzia says that if your father loses something and your Rebbe loses something, you return your Rebbe's first. So then there's a discussion. Who's your Rebbe? What's your Rebbe? And the shita that is offered up is the one who teaches you Gemara. Not Tanakh, not Mishnah, but Gemara. Gemara is the Ikar Limud. Why? Because from Tanakh, you're not going to know what to do. From Mishnayos, we don't paskin from a Mishnah. The Gemara is the one that's most likely to be able to give you a derech hachayim. In addition to that, it has the power to be able to sharpen your mind and change your thinking. Mishnayos, you see these kids who memorize Mishnayos. Mishnayos need to be memorized. You need to know it. Lahavdil, it's like the times table. You need to know it. But the understanding of what the Mishnayos are saying, that's in the Gemara. It teaches you how to think. It teaches you how to approach Taiyva and by extension HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so therefore, the mitzvah to be able to learn Gemara has the ability to be much more transformational in the life of a person than anything else. So should you focus on Ian or Bekias? And to my mind, that's a little bit like, should I work on mitzvahs aseh or mitzvahs los aseh? Should I work on ben al chaver or ben al makom? The answer is obviously both. Because you have to know Gemaras. You have to know Bekias. You have to know. That's one of the tremendous advantages of Daf Yomi. Even if you find it difficult, it'll expose you to things that you just never would have heard of before. And when you see it in the Gemara, whether you get the greatest understanding or not, just being exposed to it has a tremendous value to you of picking up Yediyas. And the more you learn, the more you see. Otherwise, listen, you only do the Yeshiva Shemesechtes, you'll never see what else is there. If you're a brisker, so you'll learn Kutchim. You won't know anything about anything else, You need to be able to get everything. You have to have exposure. And that's why I always tell the story when my son made his first Siyam Hashas. So Moshe Shapiro spoke. And he said, this is not really a Siyam Hashas. This is called Siyam HaMesechtes. If you want to do a Siyam Hashas, you have to also fill in all the Mishnayos that don't have Gemara Bavli on it. So he says, so next time you'll make a Siyam Hashas, and then the third time you'll do a Siyam on Yerushalmi. Anyway, so that's why I took over a Daf Yomi shir in the middle of the last cycle. When I started this cycle, I said, we're going to do a Siyam Hashas at the end. And every day we do a Mishnah. We started doing in Peah until we got through Zerayim, Seder Zerayim, and then we did Avos, and we did Edyos, and then we started Taurus. So now we're at the beginning of Negoyim in Taurus, and we're going to go through and fill in all those Mishnayos. But the more you see, the more it opens up to you. And then when you come to a Gemara, a lot of Gemara is comparing Mishnayos from around Shas or different Gemaras from around Shas. The more you're exposed to it, the more you see it, the more it gives you an understanding. By this point, I give my shir, almost everybody in the shir anticipates the Gemara's next kash. Because I remember we learned about Davar Shel Bala Olam. I remember we learned about this Inyan over here. I remember, didn't we say the following? And you slowly start picking up more and more Yediyas to be able to get it. But without Ian, then you'll never really know what you're doing. Rabbi Orlofsky once said, people complain we go too slow because we're going so be-Ian. But the truth of the matter is that if you dig down deep enough, then you'll hit the Midtown Tunnel and you'll get right across the East River. Otherwise, you're going to have to swim. It's going to take you much longer to get there. So if you go down deep enough, then you'll find things will open up to you. So that's why ideally there should be a combination of the two. Ian, so that you gain the depth of understanding. Now, let me just give you my idea of what I mean by Ian. I gave a Gemara shir for many years. Be Ian. And I would tell the guys up front, if they're joining my shir, you have to be able to make a laning. I can't teach you how to read. I'm not smart enough. When I was in Derech, the one who did the first level shir for the guys who didn't know how to read was Rabbi Lazarus, who, finished Shas every year. He was the Rosh Hashiva. He gave the bottom shir. That takes much smarter than me. Yeah. Well, I gave a shir, and I used to say, if you're looking to do Rambams and Steers and Rishonim, you're in the wrong place. I said, I'm going to do Gemara, Rashi, and Taisvis, and whatever we need to get pshat in Gemara, Rashi, and Taisvis. That's what I said. And so I would emphasize, what's the question? What's the answer? What's the proof? What is he trying to say? Why did Rashi say this? Why did Taisvis bring two terutzim? Focus on what's there and get the pshat clear. People love to play lumdis games. Yeah? People would start this kind of stuff and I say, la lumdis land, You want to sit here and play around. I'm not here to play around. I'm here to understand what's the Gemara, what's the Rashi, what's the Taisvis. I may have told this story recently, but a fellow was collecting in England, and he was staying in the same house that Rabbi Orlofsky was staying, and he was reading. Gemara, Rashi, Taisvis, on a piece of Gemara that the yeshiva was doing in one of the bubbas that everybody saw many times already. And again, slowly, Gemara, Rashi, Taisvis. He did this for 3 hours. The same Gemara, Rashi, Taisvis, to make sure that he was getting the meaning that was inside of it. So, if your Ian is flights of fancy and, and playing games, etc., okay, I call that entertainment, parpos Torah. But if you're working hard to understand the pshat, and that's I think the main focus of what Ian should be. And that's it for this episode. If you want to find out more about the show, you can go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can join one of my online shiurim. I have a Daf Yomi. We have a Mesilas Yesharim for ladies. We have a Tefillah shir. And I've gotten some requests to make another shir on Sunday. We had a Mesilas Yesharim that finished. And anybody who has any suggestions of what you think you might want to sign up for to learn, I'm happy to entertain all suggestions. And you can sponsor an episode or sponsor a question and answer. I already mentioned we're out of sponsors. So we really need people to step up and help us out so that we can keep the production going, because we know that there are tens of thousands of people who are getting chizuk from this, and you can be a chelik of that. And that's it for now. Until next time, I am David Orlofsky, and this has been the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.